I'm Bill.
And I'm Candace. And we're the Disruptors.
Well, Candace, today we get to have somebody come in that knows about your retirement plan that you don't have. And we can talk about it.
That's because I keep my retirement kind of private.
Oh, you keep it private? Nobody knows there?
We have the privilege of actually having two people in the studio today.
Well, I'll let you make the introductions because this is your moment.
Well, first of all, we've got my beautiful and delicious, handsome husband, Chris, in the studio today. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you.
Delicious and handsome.
We won't go there.
Okay, we'll back off.
This is a PG rated. Can't you just roll with it? Bill is already having a problem. He's already had a confrontation with Roger. Roger
Roger, our new production manager, is a little upset how we do our show.
He didn't park him in the right spot.
That's right.
It's horrible.
It's very bad. Well, go ahead, since you brought this whole thing up and made a mess out of it, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest?
Well, we have the privilege once again to have Denise Anderson of Avanti Group back to the show. Welcome to the show, Denise.
Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for having me back.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about 401ks. And everybody gets ready to retire. At least we hope they do. And there's a big, big cloud of what do we do? How do we do this? And this 401k thing, it sounds kind of spooky, but
it's scary for Bill. It's the senility that rolls in, and all of a sudden, he just thinks that
it's just old age.
Oh, it's old age.
Yeah, but I want to know from somebody that knows about this how I'm going to spend my old age account.
Okay, so here we go. Denise, why don't you just give us the basics so that Bill can understand?
Yeah, so he can understand
what a 401k is, and not all the technical terms that gets him confused.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the first myth. People think that 401k or wherever you work, they name it something different, that it's the actual plan. And it's not. It's actually the tax code that allows you to deduct the money you contribute to your plan.
Okay, so that means 401k is the tax code.
Thank you, Candace.
Bill.
Most people don't really understand their plans because they're employer sponsored, and they usually ask you, do you want to contribute or not contribute? Most people just say yes or no, and to a certain percentage, and then they leave it alone. So the first thing you need to do is to actually get a copy of your plan, because they differ from employer to employer. Employer gets to make the basic rules about how the plan works, what company is administrating it, and all of those things. So you actually need to get a plan. How often, Denise, let me just stop there. How often do employees actually have that plan, the actual physical printed copy of what that plan is? They're required to get at least an annual statement every year if they participate. And you get, usually it depends on the company and the rules, there's an open enrollment period. So when you're hired, maybe it's after 90 days you can participate or whatever. And then usually after that, annually, you can choose to make changes or start or stop a plan.
So you do have control of it then. And isn't it usually the employer sets this up as a benefit? You don't employment.
The only control you have is how much you want to contribute and if you want to contribute to it.
Oh.
The rest of the plan is actually laid out by the employer. And the employer makes the rules and decides which, like you said, which you get to choose from whatever the employer set up, usually different funds. Some employers have 4 funds to choose from, some have 12. And so you really need to take a look at it. Most people just say, okay, I'm putting money into it, get their annual statement and say, oh, I get this much money and
that's it.
And that's it. The other thing is when you leave an employer and go to another employer, a lot of people don't realize that you can actually move it to an IRA, which is an individual retirement plan. And then that gives you more control because you control where you want to put your money and how you want it invested. So a lot of people leave their retirement plans with their old employer not realizing they can move them.
So and the other thing is, isn't this based on the value of what the stock market's doing at 401k? Is there any safeguards? In other words, if the market goes flat, do you lose your 401k?
Well, again, you have to look at your plan. Some plans have funds that work kind of like savings account, give very little interest, but most of them are involved in the stock market type returns and things. So again, you really need to look at your plan and understand, what's being offered, where you should put your money, and do you want to? The advantage and why most people do it is because they say you don't pay taxes on the money you contribute to your 401k. But the reverse side is you give that up when you take the money out. So your money's growing tax deferred. You get the tax deduction, let's say, on you contributed $5,000 this year.
Okay.
If your $5,000 grows to $20,000, you're going to be taxed on the whole $20,000 when you pull it out. The other thing you have to be careful is the government puts a 10% early withdrawal penalty of 10% if you're not 59 and a half. So if you get in a situation where you want to take your 401k money out, and if your company lets you take it out, you will be charged ordinary income tax plus the early withdrawal penalty if you're not 59 and a half.
So it's based on 59 and a half. In other words, you get out of that jungle after you turn 59.
You still have to pay the taxes, but they remove the 10% early withdrawal penalty.
I want to know where the half part came in at.
Well,
I mean, who decided half?
Well, yeah.
well, I don't know.
That would have been the government.
That would have been the government
Yeah.
somewhere along the line.
Huh, interesting.
So there's different. Then there's Roth IRAs that you can do. There's individual plans, which are IRAs. So if your company doesn't have a plan or you want to do your own plan, there's ways to do that too. So there's a lot of things you need to know and understand. There's loopholes and gaps in some of them. Some people have pension plans. A lot of those pension plans are going away, but you also need to know what your pension plan includes. What is it going to pay? Pension plans were great because people used to get one job, work it their whole life, and then retire, and then you get a pension.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen anymore. Most people will work at least 4 different jobs in their lifetime. And so you might have a little pension here
Unless
or
you're
pension there, or, unless you're Bill. And
Bill's
Yeah.
worked 100 at least.
At least 100.
so he's
yeah.
probably had at least 20,
Jack of all trades.
20 jobs.
Master of none.
Yeah. But the idea is, I like to educate people. I want people to come in with all their stuff. Let me see what it is. I can tell you who to talk to, what questions to ask. You need to, most people are just afraid to even ask because they don't even know what questions to ask.
That is true.
So if you know what questions to ask, you can call your if you have a 401k, you can call up and say, hey, do I have this? Do I have that? Do I don't? Does it work this way? Does it work that way? And then you can at least be educated and make better choices about what you want to do with your money. And like we said, the other downside to 401ks and IRAs are usually limited to how much money you can put into them. So, and it's limited to earned income. So if you buy some rental homes and you have income coming in, that's not earned income. You can't put that in your IRA.
Oh, I see.
So you have to find other ways to take that money and, take a look at things. So you want to get a hold of your tax accountant, but the basic rules for 2017 is $5,500 a year into an IRA. If you're age 50 or above, they have a catch-up provision, so you can put $6,500 into an IRA. So if you have more income than that, you would like to
because that extra
save.
$1,000 is going to seal the deal. It's going to make you.
Yeah, that's right. That's doggone right.
It's a
And then if
catch-up.
you live for another 100 years, you'll be a millionaire.
Well, and it's important for people to have some type of a retirement plan. I'm a firm believer of that because Social Security, let's go back. Whenever it was there, people could actually live on their Social Security benefits that they had paid into. And now it's completely supplemental. And not only is it supplemental, it's pretty doggone hard for you to be able to live off of that. So,
The latest statistics said that if you work and then go on Social Security will only give you about 35% of the income you're used to living off of.
Oh, that's
Well,
wonderful.
and you don't have companies doing pensions. So, I mean, it's more important, I think, today to actually sit down with someone like you, Denise, to map out really what is life going to look like when no longer am I working and getting that paycheck coming in.
And there's loopholes to plans. People go, well, why didn't my plan administrator tell me that? Well, they've got people working in the office saying, this is how the plan works. This is what you do. They don't know what the other options out there. And I just want to, this happened to somebody I knew, and this is just an example of a loophole. So somebody I knew worked for a company that had a pension. They were going to retire at 55 or 60. And the way the pension works is you can take all the money for yourself, or you can leave a percentage for your spouse, so that in retirement, if something happens, your spouse will get some money too. Well, they were looking at their plan, and if something in retirement, after they retired, happened to him, his wife would get several $1,000s a month. And he said, she's well taken care of. My company's giving me this pension. When we get to retirement, anything happens to me, she's going to get a couple $100,000. Well, he died at, I think it was 49 or 50 years old, worked 20 plus years with the company. And the sad part was, the way the pension worked is if you didn't work until retirement, the spouse got something like half of the lowest amount, and she's now getting $400 or $600 a month in retirement. There was your loophole. If you didn't make it to retirement, see, the plan was made for retirement. Mm-hmm. There was the loophole. How do you fill that gap? How do you fill that loophole?
Well, and let's be honest, okay? I mean, let's just call it what it is. If I'm a corporation and I've brought somebody in, or I'm paying somebody to manage funds that I'm matching, I want those funds to continue to support the corporation. So, I mean, I encourage everyone to get outside information beyond the corporation, whatever that company is, because part of their objective is to keep the mothership floating. So why would they come in and tell you the best plan for you? Social Security can't tell you what the best plan for you is. So that's why you have to go outside and get that information. Is that correct? I mean, that's what...
Basically, most corporations put in plans because they themselves want a plan when they retire.
Right.
So they get the same tax deduction you get for putting the money into it. So they will put it in because it not only benefits the employees, but of course it benefits the self and the corporation. Mm-hmm. So if the corporation, I own the corporation and I want to put money aside for my retirement, well, I'm putting it in a 401k, getting the same tax deduction you are, but of course more. And then the company, and again, you'd have to double check with tax accountants if you own your own company, but usually there's some tax deductibility to contributing to the employees. So they just do their research, and they have to come up with a one-size-fits-all plan that hopefully will, give some benefit to everybody involved. But again, not everybody is one-size-fits-all. Is that one-size-fit-all plan good and accurate for all people involved?
Would it be good for you, Bill?
Well, I don't know if it'd be good for me.
So one size fits all.
Fits all. That would be wonderful. I understand.
What size are you?
Yes. Very, very limited. Thank you so much for asking. I can see now why a lot of people work at Walmart and agree, how are you today? Because their 401ks didn't match up retirement, or they didn't think about it. But the question I have is, most people go to work, and I know a good friend of mine just went to work for a big company. He's really excited about the fact that they are going to put in $5 per whatever for his retirement, matching. How do you figure out, because big companies, I would assume, have somebody that handles the plan. How do they know the employee if they're getting a good deal or not? Isn't corporations kind of enclose that loop and only tell you certain things? And can you get that information out from them and have somebody like yourself sit down and analyze this?
They have to hire a third-party administrator who has all their licenses and legal and all of those things. So the third-party administrator is going to be the person that handles the funds and then let you know what the funds are.